Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to give this slide a good solid 3 count, and we're going to move on right by it. So welcome to the future of marketing. My name is Melissa Hoplane, and we're going to start with some introductions as to who I am, who these people on stage are with me. We're going to go over some of the challenges that are experienced within marketing organizations. Kevin is going to talk about how his team is using Smartsheet for marketing. And then we're going to see a quick demo of all 3 of our accelerators and then leave some time for questions. So like I said, my name is Melissa Hoplane. I'm the product marketing manager for all of our accelerators. And today I'm joined by Kevin Branscombe. He's the manager of brand marketing and content strategy at Blue Nile. Before he was at Blue Nile, he worked at Michael Kors and Uniqlo and used Smartsheet there as well for marketing. I'm also joined by Steve Gazaski. Steve is the product manager for accelerators, and prior to being a product manager here at Smartsheet, he worked in our consulting group. All right, I kind of want to just level set everybody before we get started on what is an accelerator. So accelerators are purpose-built solutions to help solve a specific business problem, and in this case, marketing. We're using core Smartsheet functionality, so all the sheets, reports, and dashboards that you know and love, layered in with some automation and workflows and notifications. And we're bringing in some of our premium capabilities, like Control Center, Dynamic View, and Calendar app to really solve these challenges. We're also leveraging best practices that we've learned from our customers, how our customers, like Kevin, are using our solution, how consulting is implementing solutions for marketing, in this case, and then also some of the best practices from the industry. So we take these 3 areas of expertise and really layer them in to then provide best practices for how a solution can actually solve a problem. And we always have a specific buyer in mind. The person who's responsible for that challenge, we want to make their life so much easier. So who here sits within marketing? Everybody. Lovely. So typically, marketing organizations have about 5% of the total revenue is their budget. So let me restate that because that was a bit of a confusing sentence. So typically, marketing budgets are about 5% of a company's revenue. So if a company has $400 million in revenue, that's a huge budget. And with a budget that big, organizations really need to be able to show how they're driving success. And we understand that when businesses don't understand what's going on within the entire marketing organization, business suffers. You don't know what's going on, you don't know what's driving, you don't know how you're laddering up to your ROI and actually driving your business forward. There's also been a type of app proliferation in terms of marketing. I know at previous companies, I used one tool for requesting content, another tool for tracking it, another one for approving, another one for data, and another one for reporting, which is insane. And all of those various tools didn't match up. So I always had incorrect information. And that just also leads to misalignment. If you're not using the same tools, you're misaligned, you don't understand your priorities, and that's going to slow down the speed of execution in terms of creating content for campaigns or for events, or any other type of things that you're creating. And when you have misalignment, there's also a lack of prioritization, which means that your marketing efforts are inefficient. And that means that you don't understand what's going on. You're not going to get things done. Decisions are going to be made that leave people confused and don't know what they're really doing and why they're doing it. We also recently did a study with Loudhouse, which is a research company out of the UK, that found when work is not done on a unified platform, it's 3 times slower when you get work done. So using a unified platform only helps to get work done faster and show that impact on ROI sooner. So with that, we created 3 accelerators for marketing to alleviate a lot of the headaches that marketing organizations are feeling. So we have an accelerator for campaign management, an accelerator for events, and an accelerator for marketing shared services. Now, all 3 of these solutions can be standalone, or they can be integrated together to solve the holistic problems of the headaches that are felt within marketing. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, who's going to talk about how he's used Smartsheet for marketing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Branscombe. I'm the manager of brand marketing and content strategy at Blue Nile, which is a e-commerce retailer for certified diamonds, engagement rings, and fine jewelry. but I'm actually going to back it up 5+ years from when I started using Smartsheet, which was at Michael Kors. I was a creative project manager assigned to one single solitary task, which was the print catalog. Sounds like 100 years ago. And the reason it was one single solitary assignment, whereas other project managers had 6 to a dozen projects, is because the print catalog was a very long lead project. There was 4 a year per season, and it was 6 months long, so I was always in the beginning, the middle, and end of a single catalog. And it was working with cross-functional teams from planning and analytics, finance, to creative, to shoot production, to post-production, to legal, to design, copywriters, everyone. But the way we were using it was completely incorrectly, and by that I mean Smartsheet. Essentially, we just had a task list. I had one sheet, and I was the only one visible to it. I would literally print it out and bring it to meetings, highlight people's names with what their assigned tasks were, and give it to them, because that's just the way I was trained to use Smartsheet. I think Michael Kors had the program, but clearly nobody was championing for it. Nobody was learning about it. So a couple months had gone by, and I realized that this didn't need to be one person's full-time job. So I dug into the bells and whistles of Smartsheet. I figured all these little icons and rows and columns and things must do something beyond just, I might as well just had a piece of paper with this list. I didn't need to have it in Smartsheet. So I figured out how to use, dependencies, alerts, notifications, automated workflows, and things like that. And within 6 months, I had made that one full-time job just a piece of my job. A lot of it that I was doing manually, like checking in with people, letting them know when due dates were coming up, what have you, just became Smartsheet's job. So then I was able to take on more and more projects. And by the end of my time as a project manager, which was around 1.5 years, I was managing a dozen or so projects, including the catalog, the digital catalog, microsites, landing pages, you name it. And then I jumped over to be the manager of global brand marketing at Michael Kors. So I'd stayed within the company, but shifted from creative to marketing. 2 teams that worked very closely together, but not very well, which is my first order of business as a manager of brand marketing, was actually improving the relationship between creative and marketing. Another very archaic process we had was submitting creative briefs from the marketing to the creative team. It was a Word doc template. So there's no required fields, nothing. It was 2 pages long. You fill in the blanks, checkbox, whatever. So marketers and other people in the company would fill that out, send it to an email alias for creative services, and then someone on that end would take that attachment, the creative brief, put it into Smartsheet, and then we'd never see it again. So clearly what I did there was just let them know about forms, because at this point I just kind of become obsessed with Smartsheet, whether or not it was part of my day-to-day work. Learned about forms, had our creative services manager build forms out per creative brief. So there was a creative brief for email, there was a creative brief for campaigns, for just photography. So different levels all fitting into the same project tracker sheet. And that was a godsend. It didn't only just make things easier for the creative services manager, whose full-time job was essentially taking attachments and putting it into Smartsheet. She ended up becoming a project manager herself because that whole work process became automated. It did a little more in Smartsheet at Michael Kors, but I'm going to jump to current day at Blue Nile. Where do I even start there? Blue Nile has gone through a lot of change. She's laughing because she's my customer success manager, and I'm constantly complaining to her. But they've gone through a lot of change. They were public at one point, went private, now owned by a venture capitalist firm, a lot of leadership change, a lot of department turnover. The whole marketing and creative departments were essentially new in the past year. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of legacy knowledge lost, processes lost, and we're trying to essentially make a startup from a 20-year-old company. So even though my title is brand marketing and content strategy, which is what I do, the last year there has been really focused on marketing operations, process management, change management, so we can all start talking to each other correctly. And actually, I should get to my logo, guys. So we can all start talking to each other correctly, have an integrated marketing strategy, be able to showcase some of the stuff to executives, because it was just a mess. Everything was just done in email and in Jira. Not sure if those of you who work in Jira, but it's not a project management tool outside of software development in my experience. So what I did, this was the marketing plan. Sorry, it gives me agita looking at this. This is what I had built in Google Docs or Google Sheets when I got to Blue Nile to kind of map out what they did the year before I got there. I had to dig into Jira on what things were executed, from emails to site placements to site stripes, and just kind of built this map to say this is what we did last year in Q4, and I'm not managing a sheet like this, going cell by cell and updating things, and then sort of transition into Smartsheet. So Erica here actually introduced me to the calendar app. And excuse my kind of rudimentary slides, these were slapped together. So this calendar on the top left is essentially taking what I had here and putting it into a much more streamlined, clean view. It gets a little deeper and you can zoom out and zoom in and click on any single thing and it'll tell you what the business goals it ladders up to, what the marketing goals it ladders up to, what deliverables come out of it, you name it. And that was to build a 6 to 12 month view of what our ideas were for marketing for the next year. And when I came into Blue Nile, there was no view of what we're doing except for what we're doing that moment. Like even to this day, we're kind of working a month out, but we're trying to build a process where we can plan ahead, map ahead, and then kind of work back from there. Very big on work back schedules as a former creative project manager. So that top left thing is the calendar app, and then below that on the bottom right is the campaign overview. So that's taking a snapshot of our Q4 campaigns. You can see in the top left I've linked to a dashboard. I outline the phases of what these campaigns are, and then it's broken out by month and, of course, color-coded based on what the campaign is, whether it's a non-promotional campaign, a brand campaign, an exclusive promotion. We're very big on promotions at Blue Nile. It's what kind of keeps us afloat. And then what the launch date of that campaign is, the end date, what work back schedule phase it follows, and I'll get into that. What the deliverables are, so that's just check boxes like, are there going to be site placements? Check for yes. Are there emails? You write how many they are. It links to the master Jira ticket. It shows you the owners, and I've actually farther out on the right there built a RACI. So that didn't exist either. There's a lot of lack of clarity on who owns what at Blue Nile because of all that turnover. So when an executive had an idea of a new campaign, we want to launch, let's say, a Valentine's Day campaign. We'd all look around the room and not know who would start that, who would own it, who owned what pieces, who built the process, who built anything. So we needed something, and we already had Smartsheet, and just no one was using it, so I put this all into Smartsheet. And then I also popped up that little sheet summary thing, which is new, and this was kind of to give a snapshot for capacity planning. So if there are 89 emails that are going to be done in Q4, our creative team needs to know that because they need to plan accordingly, maybe get contractors or temps coming in. Because Q4, obviously, I'm in retail e-commerce. It is started 2 days ago, and it's our biggest quarter by a landslide. So that's what I did here for the calendar planning, the campaign overview, the sheet overview, and we're starting to work on capacity planning. And I think it's great that I think now you can do sheet summaries built into your dashboards, because we do have a dashboard for the more executive view, because if I showed this to an executive, they would just walk away. If I showed this to them, I would be fired. So moving on to that, so this is the campaign planning, but then it's like, how does this work get done? Like I said, we didn't have much visibility into who owns what. We have all these campaigns listed here, but we didn't really know who was doing what piece, so there was a work back schedule. And because we're an e-commerce company, our last thing out of the gate is our site updates. And using Jira, we have our whole web development team, and they use sprint planning, so break it into 2 weeks at a time. So anything launching between X date and X date, which is a 2-week period, follows these work back schedule due dates. So we decided to take that on as well as a marketing team, just so we can kind of mimic what we're doing to who we're delivering to, which is the site team. And that's what this is. It's funny seeing all these accelerators. That makes this look like garbage, but that's where he's going to talk to you about that next. So this is the work back schedule. So all these campaigns here follow a different schedule by phase. So there's phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on when it launches. And that's what this dashboard here does. So not only does it link to the key resources, like back to that calendar overview and the weekly planning, it gives you a link to the project tracker on that bottom right here, key development sprint due dates, which are all in Jira and Confluence, which I refuse to go into, but I'll link to them. At-risk tasks, and then broken down by phase. So there's phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the upcoming tasks for the next 21 days. So this eliminated a lot of unnecessary status meetings. We were meeting probably 2 or 3 times a week to be like, where are we with this campaign or this campaign? And people could just do that on their own time. I asked people ad nauseum to bookmark this dashboard so they could stop pinging me in Slack to say, like, what's this thing coming up next? Or when do we kick off this? It's all in here. And all the necessary documents are linked out of here. So that thing on the top left is really, I called it the executive view, because I can't do much in it. It's just being fed from this sheet at the bottom right, which I was in constantly managing, as well as our creative project manager, and our shoot production manager. And shoot production's involved because everything we do requires some sort of image asset, and we shoot twice a month. So those rows in black there are each of the 4 phases that I mentioned, and they all drop down to the work back schedule from initial kickoff and concepting down to shoot production, to post-production, to leadership review of images, to stakeholder review of images and briefs, and what have you. And if you notice too, on the top of every sheet that I've made, I create links to the other ones that I've made to keep this kind of information cycle going, because people will take one sheet and say, great, I got it. And then they'll ask me, where's the dashboard link? I'm sure those of you who are sort of internal power users or Smartsheet champions get a lot of people asking you to send the same documents. I've gone so far as to almost put it in my email signature, like this is the dashboard, this is the link. But then I realized that people outside of the company would be seeing that, and it wouldn't be as helpful. But essentially, this is all built in the last 2 months to prepare for Q4, because I started in November of last year. I wasn't really part of the Q4 planning, but I saw the stress and strain it put on people. Q4 in any retail or e-commerce company, I'm sure you understand how crazy that is, and I kind of refused to go into it the way it was being managed when I started. So having 5 years of Smartsheet experience, I sort of raised my hand, which is why my job is really not brand marketing right now. It's been change management, and marketing operations. But it's been a huge success so far. We meet far less to review status updates for individual projects or for overarching campaigns, and people are in here all the time and kind of on their own accord have started commenting in sheets and in rows and taking the communication internally. What I don't love is when people are copying and pasting things and like screenshotting it, putting an email and saying, what is this due date? You can just hit the little chat bubble and I will get it and respond to you there. Because it's a learning process for everyone. We're still using many forms of communication. I'm getting pings in Jira about things that are in here. I'm getting Slacks about things that are in Jira and vice versa. So slowly but surely we're migrating. I'm trying very hard to get the Jira connector for 2020 so we can just create tickets and batch upload them into Jira. It has that bi-directional communication. Because it's my goal for 2020 to never get into Jira again. It's just not my favorite tool. I'm sure it has its use somewhere, just not with me. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I've been doing from, oh, we have a question.
Yeah, I really like what you've done, and I would like to have you share your process from moving from the Excel spreadsheet over to Smartsheet. Did you just import it and then start modifying?
I didn't
Methodology.
just taking on a little more work for a little bit of time. I was kind of managing both things. Not to quote Kevin Costner from Field of Dreams, but if you build it, they will come. So I had to build it into Smartsheet and kind of show both. Like I was managing both. I managed the Excel spreadsheet and I managed this. And I think people realize that the Excel spreadsheet, yeah, it's kind of pretty and it looks super neat, but it takes a lot of work to figure out what's going on there down to the cell level. And if you update one thing at the top, if I go back to this, that top row is kind of top 3 rows rather, below the first blue line are what our overarching campaigns are. And then I'm copying and pasting into every cell below saying that campaign's gonna live on this page and it's gonna go in this email. And I'm copying and pasting. Nothing is dynamic and nothing is interactive. It's just super, super manual. And I was probably living in the sheet like 2 hours a day, just updating it. And a lot of things, I don't manage all this stuff. So I'm not a channel owner. I'm sort of the connective tissue between the different marketing channels. So if the themeil team decided to move the email from this week to this week and I didn't know, this document is no longer accurate. But now, because they've moved their email calendar, and there's some things that I haven't shown here, it's just a lot. If they update that, it's gonna update these sheets automatically without them having to tell me that they did something. This is an always real-time view of what's happening. So I wish I could say there was an easy way to switch it over. I just had to build it myself, and then I kind of refused to go back into this one. I was like,
That's what I'm interested in, the build yourself.
this?
So when you left the spreadsheet
Mm-hmm.
and you built your Smartsheet, did you upload the Excel spreadsheet into Smartsheet?
No.
Did you take the top rows and start there? What was your logic for creating the Smartsheet from the Excel? Did you process map with the team first
No.
to come up with
I-
how you should do it?
I was sort of the sole champion of Smartsheet. Like, I don't think anyone else cared whether or not we used it. I don't think they realized how much resources and time we were wasting on keeping something like that updated, and all their other tools. Some people were in, Word documents, what have you. So I have 2 monitors at my desk. I had this guy on the left and a blank sheet on the right, and I just built it into that. And then because it's my job to keep control of all this information, I just stopped using the first one and said, like, this is now how we're going to be viewing it. It's the only way I can manage this information. There was no sort of connector or logic behind it, if you will. I built it on my own. I do have a lot of Smartsheet experience, so this was relatively simple to build out. Erica did help a lot, because I was a little rusty, because at Uniqlo, the job before this, I didn't use it as much, but that's how I did it. I wish it was easier. Oh, wasn't quite Q&A time. Yeah, that's actually all I have to say. I will pass it on to Steve to go through how this is going to be much easier now, and it might answer some of your questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Can everyone hear me all right? I just want to make sure. Cool. So I'm going to flip over to a separate set of browsers here, and we're going to walk through each of the 3 accelerators that Melissa covered at the beginning of the session. So these aren't going to be full, complete end-to-end demos, but I am going to run through a couple personas and how they're involved in each solution to give you an understanding of how an end user might interact with each of these. So we'll start with the Campaign Management Accelerator. A little bit of background about the purpose of this and sort of why we created this and how we created this solution. We've partnered with a company called Serious Decisions. I'm not sure if anyone in the room is familiar with who they are. But they're a research and analyst and advisory firm that specializes in marketing and sales for the most part. And so we had them come in and spend some time with us and say, what's the best-in-class way for managing campaigns? What framework should we be thinking about? How are your customers coming to you and saying, teach us how to run campaigns? And what we landed on was this solution around sort of a 3-tiered approach to campaign planning, establishing marketing initiatives, so 3 to 5 sort of broad business objectives for the year, sort of funneling that down into programs or themes, kind of this further definition of how you're going to tackle those initiatives, and then campaigns and tactics at the lowest level that bubble their way up and show you the actual work and the things we're doing. Here's how it relates back to those business initiatives. And so in the solution, I'm going to pretend that I'm a campaign manager right now. I've gone through, my marketing leadership has defined our goals for the year. They've set out the campaigns that we're going to be running, and I've received a notification that I'm assigned to a new campaign. So I need to actually kick this project off. So I come to my sort of campaign overview page. I can see a list of all the work that I have responsible for. I can see I've created a Smartsheet for Marketing campaign already, and maybe I can click this and go to an individual dashboard. And as I scroll down further, I can see an overall view of all of the campaigns and tactics that I'm responsible for and when they're slotting into kind of our timeline for the year. So yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm also using a trackpad instead of a mouse, so it might be a little bit as I kind of navigate to the right place. Is that better? Okay. So I've decided I need to go ahead and create that can-do campaign that we see listed here. So I click this button to go create a campaign, and I'm also going to do some demo magic and just flip between tabs so I'm not testing the Wi-Fi in the room. And it would take me to Control Center. So for those of you who have been to the Control Center booth or familiar with what Control Center is, it's a way for us to provision and automate reporting for projects at scale. In this case, we're using it for campaign plans and the assets that a campaign manager would use to plan and run a campaign. So I'll click on the New button. I select the campaign blueprint. I walk through a couple steps of the wizard to understand what templates are a part of this. And then I get to a page where I can define the tactics that make up my campaign. So things like, am I running a set of CRM emails associated with this? Am I doing a blog post and some analyst relations work? Maybe am I also doing a webinar as a part of this? So I'm picking these selections, and what's happening behind the scenes is we've defined a set of milestones that are associated to each one of these tactic types, and we're building you a plan dynamically that will include those milestones and say, here's the work that you need to do to achieve these different things. So I click my way through. I pick the campaign that I want to create. I pick a parent project or that theme that this is bubbling up to. And then this pre-populates with a lot of the information that maybe my leadership has already defined for me. Here's the budget that I have available to me for this campaign. Here's a summary description of what I should be setting out to do. Here's the executive sponsor that I should be working with and when they want this in market. Then I click next and I would hit create to create this project. Now behind the scenes, Control Center is going to go spin up all these assets, sheets, reports, dashboards, rename them, link them all together, and roll that up to my executive reporting. And ultimately, I'd be able to go see my campaign plan. So in here is where I'm assigning tasks, I'm setting notifications for people who are working on this with me, I'm collaborating across departments like Kevin discussed earlier, and I'm able to use this just like you would a regular sheet. So in this world, we're going to switch personas a little bit. So now I'm a campaign manager and I've assigned a task to someone to go complete. So within a solution like this, there's often people who are involved that don't need to see the entire solution or the full picture. We've talked about how we better enable end users to get active in Smartsheet. And one of the ways that we're trying to do that is by saying, you're a specific persona in these solutions. You don't actually need to know about everything. You just need to know what you're responsible for. So maybe a content creator, someone on your creative team, lands on a page like this, where they see their My Tasks. So they can see the important tasks due in the next week. Maybe they see a full list of all of their assigned tasks at the bottom as well. And they can easily navigate to that work, go complete it in context, mark it as complete, send something out for review, and move on. So if I was a content creator, I would land in my sheet. I could use a saved filter to see my assigned work. I could go do something like some proofing with the new content collaboration work that we've done. I can add an example of my landing page, and I can set up a review request and send this out to my leadership and say, does this graphic look good? So as we continue through this, we think about all of this work that's happening at kind of the bottom level, right? We're executing tactics, we're planning campaigns. All of this is rolling up to those themes and initiatives that my leadership has defined ahead of time. So in addition to personas around the campaign manager and the individual contributors, there's this ability to roll this up to an executive or a leadership level. So maybe they come to a marketing plan overview dashboard where they can see things like some quick counts about the actual campaigns they're running. They can see their business objectives and their key results for the year. And as we continue to scroll down, we can see how that campaign work is bubbling back up to those different initiatives. So as Melissa kind of covered at the beginning of the session, being able to quantify the things that you're doing at a tactical level and how they're impacting your overall work for the year. You can also dig into more detail around that campaign list. So an executive could come look at the fine details of these. They could drill into those individual dashboards that are set up for each campaign, and they can get the information they need. Any quick questions about that before we move on to the next accelerator? And we'll open it up for general Q&A at the end. But if there's any burning questions. Yep. So Control Center is included as a part of the Accelerator purchase. So an Accelerator is an incremental cost on top of your core subscription. But when you purchase the Campaign Management Accelerator, you're purchasing the whole solution and everything that's a part of it. You don't have to buy that piecemeal. Yes, it's pre-configured in the way that we've partnered with Sirius to say, here's how we think you should manage campaigns. We then partner with you for an implementation package to say, you might not actually call that middle tier themes, maybe you call them programs. And so we'll help you kind of adjust the dashboards and the assets to make sure it's the right fit for you. And then you're free to go ahead and use it. Yep.
Is the sales model for the accelerators by user or?
It's a solution price. It's just a solution price. There's not specific licensing for the accelerator. You don't need to buy 10 accelerator licenses. You purchase the solution itself, and then it's available for you to use.
So that anyone.
Yep, so it's basically just core Smartsheet functionality as you're seeing. So if someone's a licensed user and they're able to do licensed user actions, then they can do that. If they're a collaborator, they can use this just the same as they would be collaborating on a sheet with you. Okay, so we'll move on and we'll start talking about the event accelerator. So to quickly kind of summarize how we've approached this solution, we've thought about event management as sort of a two-pronged approach for this specific accelerator, which is centered around first and third-party events. So a first-party event being something like Engage. We own and we host and we're fully responsible for this event. And a third-party event being something like an AWS Gov Summit, where we're sponsoring a specific booth. We may be hosting a couple sessions, but the overall event is not our responsibility. So this is a two sort of pronged solution that lets you manage the strategy and the planning of either of those types of events. What this solution is not is a replacement for event management tools like Cvent or any of your ticketing and sales and registration tools. We're not saying that we're the best fit for that, but where we do think we can help you is around what are the logistics and the planning and the scheduling that goes into getting ready for one of these events. So just like the campaign management accelerator, this is a persona-based solution where we're saying there's people like an event manager, there might be a work stream owner or a business lead who need different views of the data that we're looking at. So in this scenario, maybe I'm a business owner and I've decided I really want us to go to the Gov Summit this year and sponsor a booth. So I need to put that request in. So they can land on the event master list page. Just like we saw in the campaign management accelerator, they have the ability to see an overview of what the organization's working on, maybe a nice calendar view to see exactly when things are happening. And they can also submit new requests from here. So they click on that, they get taken to a nice form. They can fill out an initial business justification for why we should be going to this event. They can give us the event dates, who else is going to be there exhibiting, and a general description, and they'll submit that to the event team. The event team then goes through sort of an intake and prioritization process where if you've seen a demand management sheet or you've swung by the accelerator booth, the team's tracking that, they're adding additional details to it, and eventually they get to a point where they say, okay, we're ready to start the event plan for this event. This again leverages Control Center to spin up a set of templates to go manage your event itself. So it's pulling in some of that metadata or that profile data from the beginning of the intake process, things like what exactly is this, how large do we think this is, what are our objectives for this event. And then your event managers can use this portal to keep the team sort of together and on task with what's going on. They embed their event strategy deck. Maybe you're tracking the different content that you're creating as a part of this. We include a work back schedule based on how we think you should prepare for a third or a first party event based on our understanding. And then you can embed other assets in here too. Maybe you're tracking your team's registration and hotel information. Maybe you're doing your event budget in here. We know that event management is a lot of this thing is happening here in an email. I have this random sheet that I'm doing in Excel. Maybe I have a binder that I'm tracking a bunch of Post-it notes and other items. And we wanted to give you a place to consolidate all of that and be flexible about it. So if there's something in here and you're saying, hey, actually I use this one type of sheet all the time, it's easy to include that as a part of the template package and then include that with all of your projects moving forward. So just like the other accelerators, this information is also, oh, I don't have my other tab open. This information is also rolling up to sort of an executive summary and the ability to see across your business what's happening in the event world. Cool. Any questions there before we move on to the last one? Yep. Yep. So there's the sort of content tracker that we have here. We've got the actual core team planning schedule. So this is a traditional work back where we're saying, here's the event date. We've set some dependencies and some T-minus times to say, here's when things should be happening. This is a registration tracker that we actually use internally. So a lot of this is built on how we're planning events today. And then we have the budget. And then over to the side, we have a set of other things that we're doing. Are we tracking team apparel that we need to order and the designs for that? Are we tracking our shipping manifest? So when we're sending things out to Washington, D.C. for this event, what are the registration numbers? What are the tracking numbers? How much are we sending? Who's it going to? Just to make sure we're keeping everyone on the same page, they can get to all of that information from here. So instead of, hey, go chase that email that I sent to you 3 weeks ago, it's all in this event overview. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the last accelerator. and we'll talk a little bit about marketing shared services. So marketing shared services may be a term that is foreign to some of you. Maybe you call it creative services. Maybe you have 15 other names for it that I'm not aware of. But it's basically the process around intaking requests from the business or from marketing organizations themselves to create anything marketing related. Is it a piece of creative content? Is it a corporate communication? Is it a marketing automation request? Right? These number of things that are happening across your business. How are you intaking that information? Are you giving people the ability to prioritize that, to enrich it with more information, and then act on that? So that's what this solution enables you to do. So we're looking at, as a business or business stakeholder, maybe I have a landing page that describes the types of requests I can submit to the marketing team. Each one of these has a form. I can click on it, fill that information out. As I scroll down, maybe I have a personalized view of my requests that I've submitted, often in a typical IT request process or even a marketing request process. You submit that and it enters this black box and you have no idea what's happening. And as the owner of this thing, I may be responsible for a piece of content that I'm not going to get for 6 weeks and I have no idea. So we want to empower the business user to understand where they're at in the process as well, but only give them the information that they should see or that they care about. So as I continue to go through, let's pretend I've submitted a new request and now I'm a marketing manager and I'm responsible for overseeing the creative services sort of pipeline of work. So I come in and I see my new request dashboard and I can see I have a list here of all the new things that have come in maybe overnight. Maybe I start my day by coming to this place. I can click on this and go to the underlying sheet. I can come in and I can set a priority. I can add information. I can send an update request back to the submitter and say, hey, you actually didn't attach this brief, or can you send me some examples of the types of imagery you'd like? And then I can assign that out to a user. So I can come over to the side and say, you know, Steve is going to go ahead and work on this as a piece of creative content. At that point, we're using automated alerts and actions to send that assignment request out to the content creator, the other marketing manager, the social media person, to go ahead and get that work done. And just like I highlighted in the other solutions, they can use proofing, they could use any of the core Smartsheet functionality as a part of this process. And then at the end, this all bubbles up to that kind of executive or leadership overview to understand where you're working across your business, who you're servicing the most, what types of requests you're doing, and give you that insight into what's really happening across your organization. Okay, so that's the demo. If you have more questions or you want to see deeper demos, feel free to swing by the booth. We can answer questions, and we can also point you to your account team. So after Engage, we can set up time to go really sort of deep into the weeds on this with you.
And if you have questions right now, just come on up to the microphone so everyone can hear you, and we'll be sure to answer your questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Process and that structure within Smartsheet to help with transparency and connections within teams. So that's the world that I live in right now. This all sounds fantastic, the accelerators, and I'm of course thinking about budget, but I wonder about the transition process. So if we're in a world of self-built Smartsheet land now and we're envisioning a potential future state leveraging these amazing templates that really get you to the next stage, how do you manage that process in between?
Yeah, so like I said, each of the accelerators does come with an implementation package. So you'll partner with our team to either set the accelerator up for the first time. Maybe you're a brand new user and you need some additional training on how to actually use Smartsheet. That's a part of it. But they can also work with you to understand, hey, let's take the event management solution as an example. We have this set list of tasks that we as Smartsheet think should be in an event plan. And you're saying, actually, we have this event plan over here, and we like some of your stuff, but we like some of our stuff here too. Help us sort of merge the two together. That's absolutely a part of the implementation of these solutions. So it's about not just dropping it in your lap and saying, here it is, it's a product that's finished, and we're not going to help you make it yours. We're there to kind of help you through that journey, get you trained and enabled on it, and get you up and running.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had in the example before you scrolled down, when you're assigning it to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
the project, does that take you to another project tasks list if there's more than one person that needs to be assigned to that project?
It could. You could. There's a couple ways you could solve that. You could make this a multi-assigned to list instead of a single. You could break those tasks out into separate line items. Or an example of how these solutions could work together. Imagine that one of these rows becomes a campaign plan that has a whole set of things that have to be done with it. We can talk about how that would be integrated as sort of one holistic solution. So in this example, they're just one row, and you would have to add more rows if you wanted to have multiple tasks. But there are ways to integrate that together.
So does that mean combining two accelerators?
You could,
in order to make that happen?
or you could have a template for a complicated request project that you just know to spin up when one of those comes in, right? You can tag that as a column piece of data, and then you can save as new on your template and go from there. It's really kind of what would work best for you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Just a real quick question. Is there a place where I can find marketing materials about these accelerators so it's easy to bring it back to my organization?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the web pages for all of these are live because we announced all of this yesterday during the keynote. So if you go to smartsheet.com, you can find all of this within the Solution Center. We have web pages. We will soon have demo videos available there. We're building out lots of resources, up-leveling all of our customer evidence as well for marketing. So you can find all of this on our website, and then your sales rep can easily give you a lot more information as they get it this week. Okay. So we'll have a lot more stuff for you.
If I had to convince my team to go with the Accelerator versus building like an intake form in that process and something that I saw this morning, what would be the difference in me doing just an intake form and creating the workflows and doing that versus doing this?
So accelerators are really pre-built solutions. So the way you're talking about it is you're building something from the ground up versus this is something that's already off the shelf. You can just take off the shelf and implement right now. And the beauty with accelerators, especially these ones, is you can be implemented in less than 30 days. So if you have the time to build something and you want it to be unique to you, you can totally do that. But if you're like, I have a problem that I need to solve right now because my process just isn't working for me anymore, our team can work with you, like we said, and we've had people implemented in 17 days with some of our accelerators. So it just depends on how painful is your process and how unique do you want to make this for you. Or is this going to work? And you can just tweak it to work.
Okay.
So it's really up to you to decide.
So as far as the workflows and the automation, I could go as far as I need to in the Accelerator to give like that whole full circle?
Correct. The workflows and automation is already built in for you, and we'll tweak it so it works for you. If you need to just have it work a little differently, it's already inherently built in because that's part of the inherent ability of our platform. We're just pre-packaging all of that for you so you don't have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm loud enough without a microphone, but just to echo that, so what you're saying is because I'm in the process of building out all these solutions for New Relic. I could do the same thing, everything that Accelerate does without that, assuming you have the time, the patience, and all the
Exactly.
testing, right? So there's no limitation on what I can build without Accelerate, right?
Correct.
Accelerate, okay.
So if you're also just building without Control Center, though, that means you're going to be manually doing that for every single new item. Versus we have Control Center that allows you to do this at scale consistently, no matter how many projects you have. So you're saving yourself time, and you're getting more productive and more effective in your job then, because there's a consistency across the board, and you get time back in your day. You're not having to spend 20 hours doing that or however long it's going to take you.
Yeah, I would love that. I think though, I mean, for us, it's kind of like a proving ground right now. 'Cause we're buying a lot of solutions from you, from
Yeah.
the connectors for Salesforce and the calendar apps. We purchased those. Now we need to do a little bit of proving and marketing to see what else is next. So
Yeah.
right now we're going to be in that phase. It would be great to have a control center.
Right.
You can get separate.
You can.
It's a premium.
You can purchase Control Center separate from an Accelerator.
Yeah, it's another premium product. So you can purchase it for that specific use, or if you purchase an accelerator, like Steve mentioned, it's just inherently included. What you need for the accelerator is inherently included in the price. Of course.
So, just to add to that, to answer your question, a lot of the feedback that we got and kind of why the marketing accelerator became a priority is customers were asking for a little bit So, hello. So we heard from customers that they were interested in learning about best practices, how to use Smartsheet for marketing use cases. And so that was really a big part of why we wanted to take the time to build something like this, because again, if you're just getting into Smartsheet and you're like, oh, I could totally build that. Well, we know, and we're inspired by what our customers built. And we wanted to say, well, we also talk to a lot of customers. We know a lot about the product. And so we think we can package this up in a way where it will make a lot of sense and just be a quicker deployment for you. So that was kind of the reason why, like, you're absolutely right. You could definitely go do this, take a lot of know-how and a lot of knowledge, and having all of the pieces already there. And so we're trying to just make that easier. And you see that across the board for a lot of products that are building tools for marketing. You're not necessarily getting unique features. You're getting more a packaged offering.
And then to just build off of that further, in building these solutions, we ran these by a few customers because we were like, we wanted to gut check ourselves a little bit. Like, is this actually useful? And the 3 customers we talked to, they were like, yeah, we don't do this. We want this. Like, how can we get this? Because we just they recognize that it's valuable to have that holistic view for your marketing org, understanding how things bubble up, how do things ladder down, and it just gives you that consistency across the board in so many ways.
Do you plan on adding, maybe a year down the road, features and stuff to this?
No, they're not static. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so as enhancements are released to the core platform, of course, they're inherited by the accelerators. But we're treating these, even though they're technically just solutions based on Smartsheet objects and capabilities, we're treating them like a product. So there is an enhancement roadmap. We're planning on improving these. As things like the 10,000 feet integration becomes real, we figure out how that gets included and bundled in as a part of marketing shared services or campaign management or events. So they're a live product and one that we will continue to update over time. Great.
Any other questions?
If there's no questions, I think we can let everyone out.
Do you have one more?
Oh.
Oh, careful.
Just dawned on me. So with the will this the communications tracker, is that what you call it?
This is the corporate comms version of it.
Yeah. Will that eventually be integrated into the content collaboration?
So it is, yeah. So
Okay.
you can leverage the current version of proofing in here, just like you can with any other sheet. And then as content collaboration as a set of capabilities expands, if that's a part of the core product, that's included in that. If something becomes premium, then we'll figure out how to add that as a part of this as well. Just the same kind of answer as the last question. These will continue to be enhanced as capabilities grow.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope this was insightful. We have a booth down in the corner of the expo floor. If you have more questions, want to talk to any of us, feel free to come on by. And then if you have more detailed information requests, reach out to your account teams, and they're happy to set something up after Engage. Cool. Thanks everybody.
Thanks.